Nice to see you again on my channel. Let's dive into the new story and try to resolve it together in the comments below after watching this video. Get comfortable and let's begin. Happily married for about 2 years, we met through a dating app and got along pretty well right from our first date. We obviously had some disagreements, but that was common for all couples. Now that I look back at it, I realize I was never enough for her, but I couldn't do anything about it. My wife and I worked separate jobs. I was a chef at a well-running restaurant, while she was a corporate worker in a marketing company. Naturally, our work lives were very separate and different, but at the end of the day, we managed to give each other time. We lived together in a decent-sized house with my mother since my father died a few years back. After the second year of our marriage, my wife became somewhat distant. She worked overtime a lot and barely made it home before midnight. I thought she was just burdened with a lot of work, so I tried to comfort her. However, she got irritated with me very fast and wouldn't let me get close to her. One night while I was working, I got a message from her saying that she would be working overtime and would be home by 1 o'clock or 2 a.m. I was proud of how hard she was working, so I decided to surprise her. Before my shift ended, I made her favorite steak and mashed potatoes and packed them to take to her office. I even grabbed a bouquet of roses to show my appreciation and affection toward her. I entered the office building, and there was a receptionist who told me that my wife would be working on the second floor. I took the lift to the second floor, and as I reached the second floor, it was almost empty. I looked through all the closed rooms to find her, and finally found her. But that scene made my heart drop. Behind that closed door was my wife wrapped in the arms of another man. They were kissing and were quite intimate. I was boiling, fuming, and enraged, but I didn't want to confront her like that. So instead, I took pictures of them and plotted the perfect revenge. The next day, I pretended that everything was fine, and my plan started to roll out. She went to her office around 9 a.m., and I knew she usually had a break at noon. That's when I entered her office. She was shocked to see me. I didn't have the courtesy to take her to any corner and ask her about last night, so I confronted her in front of the entire office. She, along with other colleagues, were shocked. Maybe no one expected this, but I was not going to step back. So I pressed more and more, and by this point, we were in a full-blown argument. She was making up lame excuses. Hearing all this, her boss entered the office and inquired about the whole situation. As a reply, I just showed him all the pictures I took. I knew that her company had a policy against sexual activities in the workplace, and showing this proof to the boss would not be a good thing for her job. And that is exactly what happened. My wife was called into the office and was fired. Satisfaction filled me to the ground. Was I unable to do that? Maybe, but I was beyond ecstatic, almost like I won a battle or something. I didn't bother to stay there and went back to my house. I told my mom what happened, and she became upset too. I made up my mind to file for divorce and move on with my life. I couldn't stand unfaithful people, and God knows how long she had been cheating on me. I remember contacting my lawyer and then crying myself to sleep because, as much as I hated her at that moment, I knew I had loved her once. I moved in with my mom for a bit to take my mind off the entire situation for a couple of days. The mood in the entire house was down. I didn't hear a word from my wife, but then one evening while I was cooking dinner, I heard the doorbell ring. Since I was busy cooking, my mom went to open the door, and then I heard my wife's voice. From the sound of it, it seemed like they were fighting. I rushed to the entrance and saw my mom and my wife arguing. I intervened between them, and that's when my wife started yelling at me. She told me how I ruined her career and how both she and that man were fired from the company. She also mentioned how she wasn't able to find a decent job and has been living with the person she cheated on me with. I just listened to her rant. Quite honestly, I didn't care what happened to her or how upset she was. All I could see was her betrayal. Anyways, she suddenly demanded money from me. She told me that if I was the one who caused her to lose her source of income, I'm going to be the one providing for her. I laughed in her face and gave her the news. I told her that I have filed for a divorce petition and that in a matter of some months, we will be separated for good. Since it was a case of adultery and we didn't have everything together, she wouldn't be getting any money from me. She stood frozen and I shut the door in her face, hoping to never see her again. But was I wrong for acting this way? It's been a little over a week since I gave the divorce papers to my wife. I would be lying if I said I didn't miss her. I did. She was my wife, after all. I still remembered all those times when she told me she loved me, all our moments together. It all made me sad and prevented me from living peacefully. I may have acted harshly with her, but I think it was more in the spur of the moment. Because the truth is, I miss her terribly. I continued with everything in my life. I went to the restaurant, cooked meals, and served my customers, but it felt like a big chunk of my heart had been ripped out. I felt like I needed closure. Maybe I acted a bit out of character when I mentally decided to do everything so fast without giving anything a single thought. I thought that maybe I could still save my marriage. Was that being petty? Definitely. But I didn't care at that point. I decided to call my wife, well, ex-wife, if she signed the papers. I called her 3 times before she picked up my call. I told her that I just called her so that we could meet and discuss how things will go further from here. She, although a bit hesitant, agreed. We met in a small cafe down the road. For the first few minutes, neither of us made a move nor did we utter a word. There was an uncomfortable silence around us. But then I broke it. I asked her how she has been doing. She told me that she got a job as a waitress at a local diner, and the man she cheated on me with was given an offer to work as a mechanic in an automobile store. My mood turned sour upon hearing about that guy, but there was nothing I could do. I asked her if she was living with him, and she told me yes, she was living with him. I paused the small talk and got into the real matter. I straight up asked her how long she cheated on me. The sudden change in the tone of the conversation was a little awkward, but she answered anyway. She told me she had been cheating on me for the last 6 months before the day I caught her. My heart dropped. Her cheating on me was bad enough, but this was worse. She told me she was sorry, but she lost her feelings for me. She said she felt like I was not giving her enough time and all sorts of things. I told her she could have talked to me. We could have talked everything out and made our marriage better, but she decided to throw all that away for a stupid affair. I was furious and heavily upset. I just wished her the best of luck for her future and walked away before she could say anything else. I got the closure I needed, and I didn't make the wrong decision. It just hurt me to know that our marriage and our love could have been saved if she had just talked to me instead of going ahead and ruining everything. From here on, I have to be strong and move on with my life the best I can. I know I have people in my life who care about me, and perhaps someday that will be enough for me again. So it's been about 10 months since I met my wife in that cafe, and I've been doing a lot better. I've been focusing more on myself, and as cliche as it sounds, I've been feeling better. Divorce is never easy, but it got easier with time. In about 2 months, we will be officially divorced, and once that thought made me sick, but now I feel fine. After the incident, I felt weak and used in a way, but then I decided to do better in my life. I took my job seriously and was on the verge of becoming the head chef. I started saving for a renovation for our house. Moreover, I tried to give some time to my hobbies, which I had left behind. I took them up again, and swimming in the gym became my best coping mechanisms. I started socializing again. I wasn't looking for a relationship anytime soon, but a good date? I never said no to that. I caught up with a lot of my long-lost friends. Everything was getting back on track. I never saw my ex-wife, but I knew that despite all the mess she caused, I forgave her. I might never forget it, though. The incident taught me a lot about myself, and it gave me a moment to reflect more on myself. I was far from perfect, but I was doing better. The future didn't look so dark anymore. I started dating someone I met on a dating app. We had quite nice times together. I told her about my situation, and surprisingly enough, she was very supportive of me. I wouldn't comment on anything about us potentially marrying each other, but I was quite hopeful for our future, and I would love to be with her. Time flew by, and the divorce was finalized. It definitely felt like things were looking up again. I felt like I could leave all my past behind and move on in my life. Hopefully, things only get better from here. Ugh, you're such an a-hole. How could you be so blatantly rude and incompetent? That you went to your wife's workplace and did that to her? Honestly, ATP, you deserve to be cheated on. Sorry, not sorry. Everyone sucks here, honestly. Both of you, do something good with your life. My oldest sister's lifelong best friend has been my doctor for a couple of years. Initially, my doctor, Dr. A, was a colleague of hers from the same clinic. But after my doctor, Dr. Ray, was away on maternity leave, I temporarily switched to my sister's friend, Dr. B, as my primary physician, and it's been that way since the pandemic began. And I never switched back. I have ADHD and get prescription meds for it and have been for a few years now. Something I haven't shared with any of my family members for fear of backlash, since I come from a long line of type A overachievers who don't believe in ADHD and write it off as laziness. A few days ago, my siblings and I were hanging out at my sister's house, watching the Matthew Perry Dying Sawyer episode where he shares his history with substance abuse. And I made a comment about how skinny he looked during one of the seasons of Friends. My sister then, out of nowhere, says to me, "Well, it started with prescription drugs, so I hope you don't get hooked." I was instantly gripped with a feeling of absolute horror. My other siblings were confused and looking at her for further clarification, but she didn't say anything more. I spent the whole night just frozen and with a deep pit in my stomach. Later, when I found some time alone with her, I had to pry the information out of her. She had just come back from a girls' ski trip, and when they were extremely drunk, her friend, my Dr. B, slipped up and mentioned that she saw me recently for an increase in my dosage. And basically revealed to my sister that I had been taking prescription Vyvanse for a few years. Now I'm still livid, feeling utter betrayal, and have a strong urge to report her for breaking HIPAA regulations. My sister won't stop texting and calling me about it literally all day long, begging me not to ruin her friend's life forever. After years of hard work, she's obviously worried about losing her friend. But she couldn't care less about how disrespected I feel and how my privacy was violated. And more than anything, I worry that my sister will share it with my parents, and my family will never look at me or my achievements the same. A little more info. I've known Dr. B my entire life, as long as my sister has. She was my sister's friend since they were in first grade, and they remained close. And we've hung out with our families on multiple occasions over the years. We've even gone on trips together, including my sister's bachelorette party. I always looked up to her and found her cool growing up. She and my sister both have kids around the same age, and they're close as well. She currently brings in a bigger chunk of the income in their family, and they rely on it. My sister keeps reminding me that I'm also ruining two innocent children's lives in the process, which is the only thing I feel guilty about. I adore those kids, and they don't deserve that. But I also cannot get over how betrayed I feel. I always keep a safe distance between personal and professional relationships and would have never picked her to be my doctor had the circumstances not unfolded the way they did. I chose the next best doctor, and it was the obvious choice because I wasn't really looking to switch to a new clinic during the pandemic. Not Diego, all actions have consequences, and this is a huge breach of your privacy. It's the worst type of HIPAA violation, and she wasn't sharing the info with some random person but a member of your close family. And if she's known your family for years, she must have known that sharing that particular information could have a negative effect on your life if it got out. You need to report this, drunk or not. No one chose your doctor and a family or friend. She should have been extra careful not to reveal your personal medical information. It's not fair that you're not at fault, yet all the consequences fall on you. If you want to be nice, tell your doctor's sister's friend that she needs to self-report her HIPAA violation, or you will, and give her a short time to do so. Then, as for worrying your sister will talk to the rest of your family, document all the communication between the three of you about this and make sure you have some concrete evidence. Tell both your sister and your doctor that if the information goes any further, you will sue her and her medical practice. And better get a new doctor because you know you can't trust the one you have, your dog gossiping about you with mutual friends. That's an appalling breach of confidentiality in both legal and professional terms. Alcohol is no excuse. You would be absolutely right to report this, and your sister is an a-hole for protecting their unprofessional, law-breaking friend over your health and right to confidential health care. My wife and I recently had to move in with my mom, along with our 1-year-old son. My mom has made it very clear that we are ruining her life, and she hates having us here. I know for a lot of families, adult children moving in is normal, but in this situation, she's clearly doing us a favor and is pissed about it. I've been having a hard time setting boundaries with my mom because her answer is if we don't like it, we can leave, and to be honest, that sounds fair. Don't get me wrong, I still say something when she's rude to my wife, but as for my real boundaries and consequences, I just don't have any leverage. My wife has been on me lately about how I need to do more to set boundaries. One thing my mom does that my wife hates is using the B word in place of you in a sentence. Previously, I set a boundary that if my mom called either of us a B word, we would leave and not visit for X amount of time. But now that we live here, she laughs and tells me to please go, so my hands are quite literally tied. Well, tonight my mom came down to go to a work Christmas party, and my mother-in-law, who was visiting, made a comment about how her outfit was going to get her fired. My mom said, B word, I'm the boss, no one can fire me. My wife gave me a look, but I was just shocked because I felt my mother-in-law was rude. My wife spoke up and said that I'm a coward, and she's going to remind my mom of our boundary and how we're sick of how she uses that word. My mom then looked at my wife and said, okay, I'll say C word next time, dumb C word. I was shocked and yelled at her to shut the F up, and I told her I hate her. She left for her party, and I thought it was over. But my wife and my mother-in-law both began telling me how I needed to set consequences for my mom and how it shouldn't be so easy for her to insult my wife. I responded that we lost our right to set boundaries when we moved into her house. I don't like it either, but she owns our lives, and I'm not going to make a fool out of myself and come off as some needy beggar. I said, for now, she can really say what she wants. My mother-in-law muttered something under her breath, and my wife began to scream at me. My wife is currently not speaking to me and says I can't come into our room tonight. She called me weak and told me to crawl in bed with my mom, which honestly effing hurt because my mom has multiple locks on her door as she doesn't trust us. At least you realize you're two broke-ass adults with a child living with your mother, and your mother has made it abundantly clear, if you don't like it, move out. If your wife wants boundaries, she needs to move out. And your wife can't tell anyone where they can go at home because she's squatting in it as a broke-ass adult with a child living with her mother-in-law, and your wife's mother won't even let her move in because her husband will leave. So let that sink in, you're two broke-ass adults without many options. Your wife needs to understand she doesn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. She does not have the upper hand or moral high ground. I don't know how you ended up so broke that living with the most obnoxious toxic which I have heard of in a long time is your only alternative. Go find a freaking family homeless shelter, a church outreach, literally nearly anything would be better than staying in this hellhole you've brought your family to. Between all of you, I honestly fear for your child because I don't see how any baby can grow up sane in this situation. Please, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts and comments. Thanks for your attention, dear listeners. See you on the next video. Guys, thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate that you have devoted your time to my work, specifically on this channel. If you subscribe to the channel, I will be happy. But if you decide to talk to me in the comments about this story, I will be even happier. Stay tuned for my next story on this channel.